and welcome to my top 10 entry look of the Dutch NYX Face Awards. The theme of this challenge was phobias, so I decided to morph myself in this really creepy worm-like creature. So if you want to know how to turn yourself into this creepy worm, then please keep on watching. First up, I'm going to start by making the worms that are on my chest. And for that I'm just taking some toilet paper and cutting that into little pieces. And I'm just rolling those pieces to make it look like a little worm. And when you've got a lot of these worm thingies in different sizes, you just want to take a lot of liquid latex and put those tissue papers in the liquid latex. And then I'm just placing it on a plate and I'm just making it look like worms. So I'm just putting them down in like squiggly lines. When my worms are dried up, I'm taking the SFX setting powder, I'm just setting those worms. And to color the worms, I'm taking the liquid Suede in Club Hopper and the soft matte lip cream in Monte Carlo. And when you've colored all your worms, you just want to set it with a powder. And to make it look very shiny and gross, I'm just taking some clear acrylic paint and just painting all over the worms. And then you can just rip your worms off your plate, and you want to make sure that you cut off all the excess latex so it makes it look a little bit more realistic. And then your worms are done. Then we can continue on the mouth, and for that I'm taking a live cast of my own face and I'm just taking some molding clay and I'm just making the mouth of the worm. And this mouth is actually inspired by a real mouth of a worm because those things look creepy as hell. Like, just look at this picture. This is a mouth of a worm. Oh my god. And when you're molding the mouth, you want to make sure that you really smooth out those edges, because otherwise it's gonna look really fake when you apply it to your face. So really smooth out those edges. And then I'm just creating some holes with the back of a spoon so we can stick the teeth in here later on. When the mold is done, you're going to take some liquid latex and apply that on top of the mold. And I did about 4 or 5 layers of this. And you want to make sure that it's dry before you apply a new layer. To give the prosthetic some texture and some strength, I'm just taking some liquid latex and cotton balls and I'm applying that on top of the prosthetic. And again, make sure that the edges are very thin and smooth, just to make it easier to apply it on your face. When this is dried down, I'm taking the SFX setting powder and just set the entire prosthetic. And then I'm taking liquid Suede in Club Hopper to color the prosthetic. To give it more of a gradient, I'm taking the Monte Carlo lip cream and I'm applying it on the edges of the prosthetic. And then I'm taking the liquid Suede in Alien to color the inside of the mouth. And again, to make it look very shiny and gross, I'm taking some acrylic paint and applying that on top of the entire prosthetic. To make the teeth, I use some white clay, and then I'm taking the soft matte lip cream in Stockholm to paint all the teeth and to make it look a little bit more gross and not so white. And to make it look even more gross, I'm taking the macaron lippy in Citron and I'm just using that to color the teeth as well. Now we can start by peeling the prosthetic off of the live cast. And while I'm doing this, I'm applying a lot of the SFX setting powder on the liquid latex, because this is going to help prevent the liquid latex sticking together. And then your prosthetic is done! Now we can continue on the headpiece, and for that I'm taking some aluminum foil, and I think I used about 12 pieces of the same size. And you just want to take those pieces and roll them up, and you want to make sure that you roll them up very tightly. Then taking some masking tape and I'm going to wrap this around all the individual pieces of aluminum foil. And you want to make sure that you use masking tape and not something like duct tape, because we're going to paint on top of this. So you want something that you can paint on very easily. When this is done, I'm just taking some green, red and black acrylic paint and I mix those to get a reddish brown color. And I'm just painting every side of that thing, worm, what is it? Then I'm taking a red acrylic paint and I'm just drawing some stripes on it to make it look a little bit more realistic. And I'm taking that clear acrylic paint again just to give it some shine. To turn these worm thingies into a headpiece, you just want to take a hairband and some tape, and you want to tape all these worms to your headband. And I'm doing this by wrapping a worm around the headband, and I'm just taking that black tape to secure it. And you want to make sure that it's really secure, so you might have to use a lot of tape. And I'm just going to continue doing this until every worm is taped on the hairband. And since I used a white hairband, I just take some of that black tape and wrap it around the hairband. When you're done taping, you can just take every individual worm and bend it into a worm-like shape. And then all the prep work is done. I'm starting out with a bare face, a black wig and some creepy dark contacts. Then I'm going to prime my face using the liquid illuminator and the blurring primer. And just putting that on my face and on my chest as well. For foundation, I'm using the HD Studio foundation, and I just mix it with some white foundation to make it match my own skin color. And again, you also want to put this on your chest as well. I'm going to conceal underneath my eyes with the NYX HD Studio concealer in porcelain. And then I'm setting everything with the SFX setting powder. To make my skin look a little bit irritated, I'm taking the red color of the Wine and Dine Cheek and Contour palette. And I'm using a ripped off disposable sponge to apply this to my face. And this is going to make sure that it looks like it has a lot of texture. To contour and dirt up my face and chest, I'm taking the NYX Highlight and Contour Pro palette, and I'm applying this with dabbing motions and not with like swiping or blending motions, because you want it to look like it's dirt instead of a beautiful contour shade. So you just want to take a lot of that color on your brush and then just dab it all over your face. And to make my contour a little bit more intense, I'm just taking a smaller brush and I'm doing that exact same thing on the hollows of my cheek. Fill in my brows and taking the Tame and Frame brow pomade in black. And then I'm going to prime my eyes using the NYX Proof It primer. And to set this primer, I'm just taking an eyeshadow that is the same color as my skin tone. Then I'm taking the red eyeshadow of the NYX Ultimate Brights eyeshadow palette, and I'm placing this in the crease of my eye. And you really want this to look very intense, so I'm applying multiple layers on top of each other. And I'm also bringing this color in my inner corner and underneath my eye as well. To darken this eyeshadow, I'm taking the Wine and Dine color again, and I'm just placing this into the crease and then blending it with the red eyeshadow that I already applied. And again, you want to make sure that you put it in your inner corner and underneath your eyes as well. Then I'm taking the NYX gel liner in black and I'm applying this on top of my lids, and I'm just blending this with the red eyeshadow that I already applied. And this is going to make it look very, very dark and very intense. And you also want to put this underneath your eye as well. And I'm taking just a black eyeshadow to set this gel liner. For my waterline, I'm using the lip pencil in red tape, and this is going to make you look very sick and irritated. And then I'm just applying some mascara and lashes, and for lashes I'm using the NYX Wicked Lashes in Lay 'Em On Me. And then your eye look is done! Then I'm taking that same lip pencil and I'm using this to map out where I want the rings to be. And these rings are basically like the ridges that worms have, because worms are gross looking and they have a lot of ridges. So by using this lip pencil you can map out where you want these ridges to be, and it's going to make it a lot easier to fill them in later on. And you want these rings to be kind of symmetrical, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Then I'm taking the Pro Lip Cream palette in the reds, and I'm just taking my finger and I'm going to color these lines that I just made. And you want to make sure that the line you just drew is going to be in the middle of the red that you're applying now, because this is going to make it look like it has some depth. And you could also use a brush for this, of course, but I found it easier to just use my finger. To give these rings some depth, I'm taking the Pro Lip Cream palette in the plums, and I'm taking a small brush and I'm going to apply this in the center of each ring. And this is going to give it a lot more depth than it has right now. And to give it even more depth, I'm just taking a black eyeshadow and a really tiny brush, and I'm going to place this black eyeshadow in the center of each and every ring. And you want to blend it out a little bit, but not too much. To make myself look a little bit more slimy and worm-like, I'm taking the Dose of Dew face gloss and I'm applying this on the higher points of my face and also in between every ring that I just made. And this is just going to make you look a lot more slimy. To set everything, I'm taking the Dewy Finish spray and I'm just spraying that all over my face and chest. Then we can start on placing the worms on your chest. And I'm just mapping out where I want the worms to be and then applying some liquid latex and sticking the worms on top of that. And I'm just repeating these steps all over my chest and neck. Then I'm taking the liquid Suede in Alien again and I'm just going to color this on my mouth and around my mouth to make the prosthetic really blend in. And then I'm taking some SFX adhesive and I'm placing it on the edges of the prosthetic. And then I'm just placing the prosthetic on my face. And you really want to push down those edges to make it blend in with your skin a lot better. To make your prosthetic blend in even more, I'm taking some liquid latex and applying that on the edges of the prosthetic. To darken the inside of the prosthetic, I'm just taking that Alien liquid lipstick again. And then I'm dipping the teeth in some liquid latex and I'm just placing those in the gum holes that I already made. To blend that prosthetic into my skin even more, I'm just taking a concealer and I'm placing it on the edges of the prosthetic. And I'm just setting that concealer with the NYX Highlight and Contour Palette to make it look a little dirty and more like my skin color. To make the skin around the prosthetic look irritated, I'm just taking that Wine and Dine shade again and I'm using a disposable sponge to apply it. With that same sponge, I'm taking the NYX Total Control Drop Foundation in the shade Mocha and I'm just dabbing this foundation onto my face to make my face look even more dirtier. And I'm doing this around the edges of the prosthetic but also around the edges of my face and on my chest as well. And this is going to make it look even more dirty than it already does. To add some texture, I'm just taking a black face paint and a toothbrush and I'm just making splatters all around my face and my chest. To make it look even more gory and gross, I'm taking some fake blood on a sponge and I'm dabbing that around the edges of the prosthetic. And I'm also going to put that fake blood on the worms on my chest and this is going to make it look like the worms are eating my chest, which is kind of gross, but that's what we're going for. And because I wanted my face to look a little bit more red, I'm just taking that red Wine and Dine shade again and I'm placing that on my forehead and on my cheeks. And then for the finishing touch, I'm just putting my headpiece on and then I am done with this creepy killer worm makeup look. I hope you guys liked it. If you did, please don't forget to vote for me. I will leave all the information about where to vote and how to vote in the description box below. And I want to thank you all for watching and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye bye!